Now the next challenge is to learn how to draw an animal or anything from a photograph. And that's a little bit harder because the edges in a photograph or in real life aren't as defined as in a line drawing. And that somebody has defined it for you. You have to define the edges yourself. First, the important thing is his head is tilted and so his eyes are on a slant. And so I'm trying to get the eyes slanted the same way as the photo. And each eye is a combination of two curved lines. All right, now I'm just going to work my way from the eyes down. And so I have basically a curved line that comes down along the eye and then comes down under the eye a little bit. And I have similar on the other side. The next shape I'm going to go to is his muzzle, because that's one of the main shapes in his head, and so that's handy. And I followed the line down along the side of his muzzle, and it comes down, it slants just a little bit, and it curves in like that. And then I have similar on the other side, but it won't be exactly the same because his head is turned a little bit, but slanted, and then a curved line there, and they join. And then this line that goes up his mouth to his nose is a good reference point, so that goes in next. All right, now his nose is made up of curved lines. So we have a curved line on the bottom of his nose. It comes down and joins that little line, and a curved line over the top of his nose. So that's just the basic shape of how his nose looks. And then you have just a little curved line. That's his chin. All right, see the next main lines in his head. This line here, curved line that comes up. I'm trying to follow the curve of it and get the right distance between the edge of the curve and the eye. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, similar anyway. So I'll just bring this curved line up and pay attention to the distance from the eye. Like that. And a curved line across the top of his head here. Like that. All right. This line is, it's slightly curved. It's almost straight, just curved at the ends. And it comes down from top of his head. And then I want to pay attention to where that edge comes in relation to his side of his face, and draw that in probably first. And then I can connect the two with this curve line here, like that. And then on the other side we have another, basically a straight line with curved ends that comes out at an angle from the top of his head. And again, I'm going to pay attention to that line first, basically because it's a good reference point to draw my other line too. And then this edge of his ear, curved line, and it curves out the other way and joins like that. All right, now I'll follow this line that's made by his collar, and it starts up here. Pay attention to where it contacts the rest of his face. And I'll draw another line to show his collar. All right, from here, slightly curved line traveling down, and then a little bit more. All right, I made just a little guideline down there to show how far down his leg is going to come. And now this line comes out from that curved line that's his chest, and then it curves up into his feet a little bit, and then another line for the back of his leg. Gets a little bit closer as it gets down closer to his foot. We just have to look at distance, the distance between things comparatively when we're drawing. And then all of his little toes. All right, next we'll go over here, and there's a little curve out right there, and then it comes down. It's always a matter of drawing, when I'm drawing the line, I'm looking at how long I'm drawing it in relation to whatever else I've already drawn on the paper. It's a matter of proportions. All right, so this comes down into like another little curve, kind of a curve for his ankle or whatever you call it. And this line just a little ways over. And it comes a little bit closer, but it doesn't come all the way over. It has to leave room for the ankle. And then it comes out a little bit. And then we have the little lines that make up the partitions between his little toes. All right, what's next? I could go any of several directions. All I have to do is pick out a part of his body that's, well, visually connected to the other part, like his hind leg there that's coming out from behind his front leg. I can go right from the line that makes up his front leg and out, and make that curve. And then this little curve line here, if you take it line by line, it's not nearly as hard as it looks, because any one of these lines that I'm drawing to put together to make this dog, any individual one of these lines you could draw. Not any more difficult than writing the letters of the alphabet. Okay, now his leg overlaps his tail, so you see part of his tail between his leg and his body, and then you see the other part of his tail. All right, I'll go down to this line now. It comes out at an angle a little bit from behind his leg. And then this curves up. You see where it comes on by his ankle there. And this little curved line comes down. And then a little curved line here. All right, now I need to draw the rest of his leg there. It's overlapped by his front leg. And See how this comes out and it makes a corner, and then it comes out, and then it makes a curved line, and then this comes out. His foot at this position is really funny shaped, so it's kind of tricky to draw. And draw those little toes. There we go. Not too much more to go. Okay, we have a slanted line that goes from there to there. Then we have this line. Now, the next thing I'm going to have to do is put some shading on this dog, because right now he's just a line drawing and he's very incomplete. So we'll start looking at how to do some shading now to make him look more complete, more realistic. If you notice, I'm holding my pencil, I'll be holding it more of at an angle like this, not straight up and down on the point. And see, I'm pointing out the darker areas, because those are where the shadow is. I mean, the shadows aren't real dark on this dog, but they're enough there that I can shade from them. I'll put in the darkest darks first, just his eyes and his nose. And if you notice, when I'm coloring in his eyes dark, I'm leaving a little white speck, and that actually makes it look like he's a little bit lifelike. All right, yeah. And then his nose, it's kind of hard to see his nose. I mean, it's so dark that I can't see the details really well. But I know it's made up of these two shapes, and then I color it in here. And if I look at it real closely, it's a little bit lighter than this other part because the light's shining down on it more. And then I'll put in his nostrils. All right, now usually when I do some shading, I will start on the left side of the page and work my way over to the right side. Because in that way, I'll be moving my right hand away from the drawing, and I won't be nearly as likely to be laying my hand or accidentally laying my hand in the shading and smudging the pencil all up and getting it on my hand. Now, when you're adding some shading, I've got my lid a little bit to the side, and I am just going very lightly pressure. And if I want to make it darker, then I just go over it more. I don't really increase the pressure. And because I'm using more the side of the lead and not the tip, it makes more of a smooth tone. And you notice up here, there's a little fold in his ear, kind of, and you can see there's a shadow there because of the way the light hits it. And then a little bit lighter over here, but it's mainly that dip in his ear that's the darkest part as far as his ear goes. And here a little bit more. You see all the darks and lights in his ear? I mean, if you look at it carefully, you can see those. But just remember, hold your pencil to the side. Use more the side of the lead. Not all the way the side, just almost the side. And just go over it and over it. And if you want to get it darker, go over it more. But don't press hard. Okay, and then here's a little bit darker in here. And a little bit of a shadow from under the ear. Now keep your pressure light, okay? If I was pressing down on it, it would be looking like I was scribbling on this dog. So that's really important. And one of the things that might help you is to just practice you know, making tones like grays and darker grays yet, by going over it and over it just on a piece of paper without a picture. You could try that. All right, so in here it's darker. And then a little bit over here too. It's going to be a dark area, so I'm going over it and over it and over it and over it. And now just working into the other area. And down around here, I'm going to make it a little bit darker because, you know, it makes his face look more round because the light's kind of hitting him from the front, so the shadow would be more around the side. And this part of his head is probably like almost the lightest part in this picture. So my pressure is really light now, but I'm trying to make my strokes like really smooth and together, you know, and not look like I'm scribbling. There's a little bit of a line there that I had when I was laying it down to show the slant of his eyes so I can get his eyes in the right angle. I had to erase that. So a little bit more darker on his eye here. And working my way over. Now down, you know, toward the bottom of the shape, it's going to be darker. You can see that if you look at the photo. And then working my way up gradually to the lighter area. By the way, I should say to you that if you draw from a photograph, it doesn't have to be one where it's just empty except for the one thing that you want to draw. The only reason that I found a photograph like this and used it is because it's much more easy to see when I'm using it for a video. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter. As long as you can see the thing that you want to draw clearly, it doesn't matter if there's other things in the picture and you can draw them or not draw them. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. So I'm going to continue to shade, and I kind of make my strokes go like as if it was on the actual dog itself, you know, just kind of follow the curved surface of his face. Okay, and this a lot darker over here. Yeah, a lot darker over here. And then you can see he's got those little dot things that dogs have where their whiskers are. And so those go in there too. A little bit over here too. When I do dog portraits, which I do for people quite a bit, but a few people pay me to do portraits of their dogs, I use photographs. It's not shooting. After all, how long would the dog sit and pose for me? It's kind of ridiculous to think about. The photographs make it a lot more easy. Okay, a little bit more shading around here, between his ear and his head. And on his ear too, and over. A little bit darker there, as you can see in the photo. And so this has to get darker here because it is. So I have to go over it more. And okay, what you want to do is you want to do your shading lightly first. And as you know that you want it darker, you go over it more. But don't ever like make it really dark at once. That's something that people tend to do sometimes. You make it really dark at once, and there's no way you can get any darker for the shadows, and there's no way you can erase it because you pressed so hard and made it so dark. So start out lightly. That's what I'm doing here. Just caressing his little soft ear with my pencil. Looks like he's such a good boy. All right, so right in here I need to add some shadow, and there is some, you see it. It makes it easier to define the difference between the head and the ear and the body. And then coming down, shading. And now I'm going to darken up this area where his collar is. It means I'm going over it more and more. You can't see the whole collar because it's kind of in the folds of his neck. Okay, now I realize how long this is taking, and so I used my iMovie program to speed this up to, well, basically twice the speed I was actually doing it. And so I'm going to get through this a lot faster than I would if I just left it at the normal speed. But I thought maybe if I did the head in normal speed and then speeded this up, that you'd be able to get a lot of what you needed to learn from watching me do the head. Sometimes when I watch myself do this in this video double time, it actually kind of makes me nervous. Looks like I'm high on coffee or something. But anyway, I'm keep on holding my pencil more to the side and going over and over. See where it's darker right there on his body? So I'm following that, making it darker there. And then a little bit more. And you can jump around a little bit if you want, but and there's a little bit of a shadow on his chest, if you can see that. I don't know, the way the bone is under the skin or something. And then there's really a light area right below his neck. I'll probably come back to that anyway, because I'm not going to leave it like a stark white or anything like that. But can you follow? You see where all these different shadows are? All right, see now his leg has it's shadowed along the left side, and so that's, the light is coming from the front, maybe a little bit toward the right, and it's shadowed a little bit toward the back of the right side. And then I have to shadow between his toes too. And, you know, put in the shadows to show the form of his leg and stuff. Yeah, I have to come back to that because I think that white in the middle of it is pretty stark. All right, just put the overall like value on the leg lightly, and then you see where it's darker underneath his foot and over that part of his foot. So I go over it more there. And then around the toes. And then his tail. His tail is it's either darker or it's more in the shadows because it's darker. So I'm going to make it darker. The darkest shadow area is right down in here. It might be a darker color, but it's definitely more away from the light. So I have to put the shadows in the same form that they are. Starting out with a more of a medium value because you don't want to get too dark right away because you might find out you don't want it that dark and it's hard to lighten it up. I used to tell my students that start out really light and then go back over and darken it up where you needed to. And some of them, most of them got it. Some of them had a hard time with that and they just bear it on real hard and they'd have this really dark thing and they couldn't make it any lighter. A little bit of shadow along his rib cage there. Okay, this is darker over here, so now I'm going back in to go over it and darken it up a little bit. And this is a little bit darker here, so same thing. Right, this leg doesn't have as strong a shadow as the other one. The other one doesn't really have a strong shadow anyway, but this one has less of a strong shadow. It's perceptibly a little bit darker on the right side of it. I'll put my medium value first, and then start to go along and darken it up to make the shaded side of his leg. The shading is what makes the picture look more three-dimensional, because when the light shines in one direction on a three-dimensional thing, some of the areas are in shadows. Okay, a little bit of a dark right there above his toes. Yep. Alright, now this foot will probably take form better after I shade it because, oh, just the view of it, it looks a little funny. It's kind of hard to figure out. Back in here, it's darker, and then over here around his foot, on the bottom of his foot, and around his toes. Oh, I'm just about done here. Now this area, you can tell that it's a little bit more in the shadow than the leg is. So that's how I'll make it look more in the shadow. Go over it more. Remember, go over it more, don't go over it harder if you want it darker. This is pretty much a two-part lesson, and it might get really long if you do the drawing part and then the shading part all in one session. So you might want to take a break after you do the drawing part and then come back for the shading part. But can you see how when you shade it, it looks more realistic than when you have just that plain line drawing, even after I put in his eyes and nose? Well, I hope this works out successfully for you, and I think it will. It doesn't have to look exactly like it to be successful. It just has to show that you observed it carefully. Happy drawing.